How many more boom bust cycles until we end up hyperinflating? I don't think we're ever going to hyperinflate, my friend. It's just, I don't know. Well, yeah, I mean, there's really no reserve currency that's ever hyperinflated. You can say all the other currencies, world reserve currencies, were backed by gold or something like that. But I mean, obviously the probability isn't zero, but it's with the world reserve currency. It's not that the U.S. won't lose their reserve currency. That's inevitable. That will happen. Now, it's not going to happen in days, weeks, months, or years, but it'll happen over decades. And that process has definitely started. That's for sure. But as far as hyperinflation, like a Venezuela type deal or Zimbabwe or Weimar Germany, it's just the probability is insanely low. Now, I'll give you some numbers, though, that you can look out for to know if we're getting closer to that. If you look at the M2 money supply growth for Weimar Germany going back to 1914, which is when they really started to increase their M2, it's about 66.0% per year. And they didn't get hyperinflation until 1921 or 1922. So think about that. That is call it 8 years of 60% plus money supply growth annually. So think about what that is compounded before they got to hyperinflation. And you may say to yourself, oh, George, well, had significant inflation, blah, 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 before that. Well, yeah, they did. But I'd like to also remind you that the year prior to them experiencing hyperinflation, their currency actually went up in value relative to gold. Most people don't know that. So think about that. Imagine that, the United States does that and you come out and say, oh, the end is near for the US dollar, it's hyperinflation. And everyone's saying, no, what are you talking about? The dollar's gaining value against gold or something like that. Now, if you say that now, I think you're going to be wrong because we haven't had 60+% money supply growth over the last 8 years. I mean, think about how epic it was that the money supply grew by 25% in 2020, 2021. But in order to even get close to Weimar Germany, we'd have to go the next 8 years and have triple that. And keep in mind, at the time, their currency, I believe it was the Deutschmark, that was not the world reserve currency. So we would have to do even more than that to even get close. So my point is not that the dollar is going to maintain its value relative to goods and services in the United States. In other words, we're not going to have consumer price inflation. That's not my point. My point is not that the dollar will never lose reserve currency status. It will. But as far as it actually hyperinflating, that probability is as close to zero as possible, but it's not zero. So if you're someone that thinks that's going to happen, what you need to look for is the United States having more than 60% M2 money supply growth over many, many years. And because the dollar is the reserve currency, you're talking like 200% money supply growth every single year for 8 years before you can even start talking about hyperinflation. Now, that's if you're using the technical definition. Now, some people would say that 20% per year is hyperinflation, and that's a completely different set of probabilities. I'm just talking about textbook hyperinflation, which I believe is defined by like 50% per month. But how many boom bust cycles can they have? I don't know that there's a limit to that. I mean, look at Argentina. So I don't know that there's really a limit.